So we are live now. I just got a notice. This is David True. Those of you who dialed into some of these webinars in the past might recognize me because I've been on a couple of these. They're wonderful sessions, a great chance to learn about what is going on in different spaces around payments and all things related to it, such as security. And this will be one of those. So I thank you for joining, and please be free with any of the comments you'd like to make. We will have a little time for discussion at the end. And there's a means to post them on the Q&A or the chat. I think, Harsh, should we be using Q&A or chat? I haven't heard from Harsh, but why don't you use either one of them that you feel is most appropriate, and we'll go from there. Q&A we should use, I was just told. So if you have a question, make sure you use the Q&A, and we will address those questions during or at the end of each presentation. So we have a great group of people here to present this morning, and I thank you for making time on your Friday. A few housekeeping things I'd like to go over before we actually start the presentation. One of them is sponsors. The firm that I'm part of, Pagility, is actually a sponsor, so thanks to me. KYC 2020 is also sponsoring, and Merlin.ai is sponsoring, and we hear from folks related to each of those firms during the presentations. And so we've got media partners. We've got media partners, the FinTech Times, the FinTech Power 50, and Financial IT. And then an additional piece of it, a bit of research is being conducted. One of the participants, one of the panelists, is Dr. Kevin McLafferty. And he and one of his colleagues, Professor Nick Rich, are putting together or running a survey, trying to find and collect information about the impact of COVID-19 on banking operations. So there will be a survey that will be made available to all of you. And I would be, all of us, but especially Dr. McLafferty, Professor Nick Rich, will be happy or would be delighted if you participate in that survey. So look for that survey as sometime during the day. I'm not exactly sure when it will be posted, but it would be wonderful if you could take part and be part of this great research. Finally, I think we're ready to get started. We're just running a moment early, but I would like to introduce the first speaker, which is Linus Fugl, and he is the Senior Vice President at Danske Bank and the Tribe Leader, I love that title, Tribe Leader for Transformation and Financial Crimes Prevention, covering AML and terrorist financing, sanctions and fraud prevention. And he has many years working with driving change, innovation, and optimization in banking, and has previously worked as a management consultant, as have many of us, including myself included. So with that, Linus, I will turn this over to you and let you take the screen and talk through your presentation. So thank you. You're on mute, Linus.
Thank you very much. And also thanks for the note of being on mute here. So the payment was stopped in our filters. It originated from a lady in Sweden, and it was 25,500 SEK, and it was with a recipient in Chicago, US. So according to the lady, the money was sent to finance the safe transfer off from an oil rig where her friend had got stuck. My colleague Victor called up our customer who had sent the payment, and we asked her about the payment, and we explained about romance scams, we explained about fraud, we explained how fraudsters work. We also explained how fraudsters can work for months and sometimes even for years before they suddenly violate our trust. They break our trust, they betray us by asking for our money. And in some cases, this results in you, me, others, forever not being able to trust other human beings again. So essentially, we are on the phone with our customer for about 1 hour, and actually for a very long time discussing before we're able to agree that, okay, let's cancel this payment. It's clearly an example of fraud, financial crime. Day 2, a payment is stopped in our filters. 25,500 SEK coming from Sweden, a lady, and beneficiary in US. This time a female though. So once again, Victor is on the phone and Victor dials up to our customer, and we more or less have the same conversation again before in the end we are indeed able to cancel the payment, because this was indeed not a, could say, a real emergency situation of somebody needing to get off from an oil rig. No, this was actually an example of financial crime. So my point of sharing this little story here is that, yes, in this particular case, we saved a customer, we saved one of our fellow citizens from becoming a victim of financial crime. But the world is going instant. Fraudsters are becoming more sophisticated, and it forces us as financial institutions to gear up. We need to start looking into the future to be able to prevent this also going forward. We see technology as a key enabler there. And then I would like to just attach a note on COVID-19, not least remembering here what is the actual title of our little webinar here. Well, so what we have seen is that, yes, fraudsters out there, they have indeed embraced, if I may use that word, they have embraced COVID-19 as a way of trying to socially engineer victims, to try and trick us into believing that whatever text message or whatever phone call they're making, email they're sending, that it is indeed, you know, coming from authorities, and that victims should submit this or that type of information. So we are seeing that. We also, from the beginning of COVID-19, we spent quite a lot of effort on trying to analyze, so what are the risks, the new risk picture from this epidemic with COVID-19 developing. What we are not seeing here, 8 months into the epidemic, is that we have not seen a paradigm shift. What we have seen is some of the same modus operandi, and then we have seen an acceleration of already known trends of where people take advantage of us being more virtual, maybe even being used to not sitting next to our colleagues as an example. But overall, we are not seeing that something completely different has happened. We put it up in the beginning of this epidemic saying, there's a risk of this, but so far, I would say we have not seen that big shift happening. But what I will say is that we have seen an acceleration, and it also means that we as a bank, we probably need to move even quicker in getting away from this platform we are standing on, and I guess you could say this platform where the flames have increased a little bit due to this epidemic.
And may I ask for a moment, the increase that you'd worried about seeing, what exactly was that? Was that a volume increase or type, or what were you anticipating?
Yes, so what we have seen is that we have seen, for example, when we talk about smishing or vishing, we've seen a number of new types of scams, but essentially we have not seen a large increase in the number. So we've seen that you could say that fraudsters embrace the COVID-19 epidemic. They play on the uncertainty among our fellow citizens. Many new things are being issued by authorities. New guidelines and new things are happening. It's almost developing day by day. And we've seen that fraudsters are very quick at picking up of these things and trying to use it, but it's basically, they still try to use it to, you could say, get to the same achievement, i.e. that the victims should, you could say, hand over sensitive information like usernames, passwords, other personal information. But we have, in our bank, not seen a large increase in financial crime during this crisis. Then, of course, you could start looking into some of these packages from the governments. And I think it's also fair to say that already there has been a number of cases where criminals have tried to take advantage of these, but that's not as such hitting us as a financial institution. So, who are we? We are Danske Bank. We are located in the Nordic countries, originating out of Denmark. We have an ambition of making daily banking and important financial decisions easy. We are approximately 3.3 million customers. We have a strategy of integrating more with our customers, with colleagues, and with society. And we have existed for quite some time, close to 150 years. But that being said, we are still having a strong focus on becoming more digital, and therefore we are also proud to say that we have received the award Digital Financial Institution of the Year now 2 years in a row here in Denmark. And also, just to bring out one more example here, we are one of the founding partners of a new initiative across the 4 Nordic countries called P27, where we are essentially enabling, you could say, making payments across countries, almost like we are doing today in a domestic context. So that was just to give you an idea of what kind of financial institution we are. And once again, in Denmark, we are the largest bank, and we are one of the top 5 banks in the Nordic countries. So with that, you could say, so what have we already done when it comes to implementing technology to prevent financial crime? And just a word to kind of, I'm not sure how many here are familiar with the Nordic countries, but essentially the Nordic countries, we have a very large penetration in terms of people being part of the official economy. So more than 99% are part of what we can call the official economic system. In each of the Nordic countries, we have ID solutions. Like in Denmark, we have what's called NemID, so official solutions to electronically identify yourself. And that is, of course, making it a lot easier to secure that we are indeed dealing with the right customer in a particular case. Also, just mentioning that generally speaking, cash is very much on the decline in the Nordics, and the COVID-19 has also, you could say, accelerated that decline even further. On normal years, we have across Scandinavia seen a decline of approximately 10% of transactions every year. And of course, we don't have the statistics for this year yet, but I have a clear expectation that we will have seen an even higher decrease on the number of cash transactions during 2020. So with that as a starting point, I just wanted to give a few examples of what we have done in Danske Bank of some of these pockets of fin crime prevention. So within transaction monitoring, so retrospective monitoring up against money laundering and terrorist financing, we have, as an example, we have automated workflows. So by enabling a very structured entering of information, we have been able to take out approximately 4 minutes per case investigation. And maybe that does not sound like a lot, but when you add up and you have, you could say, more than 50,000 of these per year, then you can quickly do the math and see that this has had a significant impact on the speed in our process. When it comes to fraud dispute automation, we have done a few different things. So one is that, probably like many others, we have implemented robots to allow automatic handling of incoming dispute cases. So for example, if you as a customer, if you have bought a plane ticket and the airline is not willing to reimburse the money, then in some cases you can get the credit card issuer to actually reimburse the money, and customers would do that through the bank. So we as Danske Bank, we would receive the request, we would then process it, and in this processing we have been able to automate approximately, so 25% of the cases can flow straight through through our systems and thus take out manual work. Also, what we have done here is we have implemented a model, analytics model, essentially scoring all disputes, and we're able to score them so between 1 and 0. And for the ones close to 0, it's very obvious that no, we are not going to reimburse here. And the ones close to 1, it's very obvious that yes, we are indeed in need of refunding the customer. So that also is, of course, leaving a chunk in the middle. And these are then the ones where we would still manually need to do something. But it has significantly improved the efficiency in our process and also the quality. Then we have also, over the last years, been putting an effort into implementing machine learning in our fraud prevention. So it has been published 2 years ago that we have engaged into a partnership with a strong vendor to allow us to implement machine learning for our card fraud prevention. But the same is taking place within our payment fraud prevention, where we, by utilizing a number of different data sources that we already have available, are able to build statistical profiles on customers. We're able to utilize the historic data that we have on transactions and on customers. And from these data points, we are able to more or less identify a fraudulent transaction before the customer realizes it, which allows us, of course, to stop a transaction before it leaves the bank. In the KYC, the ODD space, so know your customer, ongoing due diligence space, we have also implemented a number of solutions. As one example, we have been able to implement a robot that is performing a blocking. We can immediately, based on KYC information or a due diligence, we're able to automatically, for example, block a customer. And just during 2020, we have implemented approximately 60 different automation solutions in this area. And for everybody who is working in this space will know that that will make a huge difference in actually, you could say, getting to the end of the to-do list to be able to automate such a large part of this manual process. Lastly, I just want to mention an example where we also, in the sanctions prevention space, are able to reapply. So if we see an identical transaction, then we're able to, through the use of historic transactions, reapply decisions, and also here take out a significant chunk of the manual work. But the problem here is that even though we have good solutions, we are still facing a number of challenges. And I'm sure that many of you in the financial industry, you could say, recognize some of these. So we are working in an environment where we have infrastructure, which is essentially built or developed for, you could say, a batch world where, it's okay, we'll enter it today and then something will happen during the night and then tomorrow it'll be executed. But this is not where the world is going. The world is going instant. Customers are expecting instant. So this is definitely a challenge, that the whole infrastructure for payments is built for another time period. We are also facing suboptimal customer experiences. They don't like that things take time. They don't like that it's complex. They don't like to constantly have to update information. We are facing an increasing cost-income ratio. We are facing more and also higher regulatory requirements. It's not later than last week that we had a new request that we need to provide a list of 26 additional pieces of information for the Danish regulator. We are challenged by the fact that fraudsters are getting more sophisticated. They also get better. They say 24/7. They do nothing else than try to find new ways of getting their money. We are challenged by fintechs, by an ongoing disruption there. Every week almost, I see a new example of great people having great ideas, and we, as an incumbent bank, we need to face that and we need to address that. And lastly, as mentioned, being close to 150 years old, we have a lot of complexity. And all of these things have essentially meant that we need to do something here. So what are we doing at Danske Bank? Well, we are introducing something called better ways of working. It means that we are right now implementing, and this is my role as a tribe lead for financial crime prevention, that we are big scale moving to agile, hoping to be better and faster in our deliveries. We take a big chunk of becoming more customer centric, so really focusing on the customer journeys. And not least, we are changing the way that we are developing IT. And I would say the big change there is that we are really moving over towards API solutions. So instead of having very large solutions, we are having, you could say, more focused modules and hooking everything up through APIs. In this process, our objectives are to become more effective, meaning that we want to find more financial crime. We also want to do it more efficiently. So we think we can do it cheaper, and we also think we can do it faster. And as part of this, we naturally need to get all the foundational building blocks in place. I wish we did not have to do this, but we need to get the basics right before we can really take it to the next level. And the next level here, essentially, we are seeing that we are revolutionizing our bank. We're doing it through much more structured access to data, customer end-to-end, looking at financial crime from an omni-channel perspective. Machine learning, AI are key elements in this process, and as well automation are. So we think that we can actually deliver this through the tribe setup, and we think that we need to do it for us to step into the future and actually secure trust in society and among our customers. So by taking and applying technology, we think that we can take this little step ahead and we can actually secure a safe future. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm most happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Linus. That was very, very good. I'm going to put you maybe on the spot a little bit. There's a question that came in from an Adrian who's participating today. And he has a question about if one is from, so you have a lot of international transactions. It's Denmark, so and so they come from all over the place. And there's always a problem, or there's often a problem with them getting blocked for different reasons. And his question is, and I shall read it verbatim, many NGOs, amongst other organizations, face difficulties in financing when the funds go to high-risk places such as Syria. What can they do in order to increase the trust of European banks so the entities won't block the transactions or accounts? Is this a case-by-case decision, or are there countries on a blacklist? So I'm hoping you're able to just address that a little bit. From being in this business, I know other people have had this question. So yeah. Please, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. And that is indeed a great question. And it's a question that I've actually in my daily work been asked a couple of times over the last years here. So I think that we need to recognize the world that we are living in. And, you know, as mentioned that we're a Nordic bank, we are also, you could say, relying on a number of partner banks throughout the world. So I think what has happened, and what we need to recognize, is that we are, you could say, as a regional bank, very depending on how the international financial industry is developing here. So in addition to that, we have a number of you could say, policies and guidelines for what transactions we will let through. We are also relying on our correspondent banks, our partners throughout the world, that these transactions also need to be approved by them. And I think this is, you know, making things quickly very complex. So, and I'm sorry now for sounding a little bit depressing here, but I'm leaning towards the conclusion that there are probably no easy solutions. But what we are doing and what we're telling our customers is essentially that, you know, I myself participating in sessions with customers, explaining them that, you know, what's driving this, what's lying behind. And what we are advising our customers to do is to really try and explain, so, you know, what is the purpose of this particular transaction, where is it going? But we're also being very open about the fact that, you know, we are not going to jeopardize violations of different sanctions by letting particular transactions through. So I think the general advice here is that we need to try and educate of, you know, how is the financial system working. This is in very much the short term. And then I also think that, you know, we need to then encourage our customers to try and be as specific as they can, to try and add, as much relevant information, because this will help us in our investigation, understanding that, well, this is actually okay to let go. But there are also transactions where international society, politicians, different institutions are saying, no, we cannot let transactions go through to these places, even though the purpose are, truly, admirable and something that I think we could all agree that, hey, who would not like to help? But it's difficult to just say, do like this. And also we have to be very cautious of not, you could say, advising customers for any type of stripping, which would be very much against the law. So fantastic question. And I'm sorry for a somewhat not a black and white answer here.
Well, in this business, with the complexity of the whole transactions and money movement business, very, very few things are simple. Let's see. Do we have any other question? Because I had one. Let's see. Q&A. Okay, so I had a question for you then. I know Dr. Kevin Rick Lafferty will be speaking tomorrow about a high performance service organization. How does that work? You've mentioned that you're a tribe leader. Can you take just a minute or two to tell us what that structure is and how it's helped at Danske Bank?
Yes, I can. So, with the caution that we are just now in the process of building this, but the way that we've set it up is that we have looked at our bank and we said, what are our capabilities to transform? We have found a number of shortcomings here. So based on that, we have essentially decided to go from pockets here and there of, most of the bank in IT has been, well, they have elements of becoming agile, and we've decided it's not working just being something isolated to IT. We've decided, no, we are going to create transformation in our bank where we really, you could say, build cross-functional teams. So being a tribe leader, it means that I have a number of squads, approximately, let's say between 15 to 20 squads, each squad being led by a product owner. So in my particular case, I'm responsible for the transformation within financial crime prevention. And we have then a number of other tribes that are responsible for their part of transformation throughout the bank. But we are, and I think that's the big change, it's a bank-wide initiative. It's not just in one particular business area. It's all business units. It's, it's operations, it's IT, it's compliance, and so from having that true cross-functional aspect, I'm really believing that this will indeed allow us to, you could say, to get away from this pockets of good things and making this consolidated approach, which for fin crime prevention, I think is crucial. Without having this real end-to-end, I'm afraid that in the end, there's a bigger risk that the criminals will win the battle here against our financial industry.
Thank you very, very much. Let me see. I don't see any more in the Q&A, so I just want to thank you again for taking the time today to share with us the information. We've got just another minute or so we want to get up and stretch your legs for a second, and then we'll get back to our next conversation, which will be with Vaughn Swartz of Rabobank. So we'll be back in a minute.